Hello there, and welcome. It's Psychic Cynthia here, Spiritual Psychic Cynthia Killian. I want to welcome you to today's video. And this is a reading video, actually, as in this is about an I-Ching reading that I did recently over our collective situation we are facing with the COVID-19 situation, with the racial protest and injustices, the economic meltdown, and all of it. So I wanted to do a reading for myself, yes, to get the knowledge about what is really happening, because there is this feeling that, the information being given out in the media and out there, it just changes every day. And to the point where what is said one day contradicts what was said just a few days before sometimes. So, I wanted to go within and reach up to the higher realms and see the higher spiritual perspective. And when I want to do that, when I want to look at the big picture, but I want to do it in a very in-depth way, I want to see what is really happening, not through the eyes of the realm of men, or humans, I should say, but through the eyes of the gods, when I want to see it from the vantage point of the masters, the ascended masters, then my practice of choice is to consult the I-Ching. Even though I'm a psychic medium, and yes, I can channel my own guides directly, and I do that often, and yes, I can speak to those who have gone on in the ancestors, and I have spoke with them about this, but I wanted to go further. And I wanted to do a reading with the I-Ching, the most ancient oracle still existing on the planet. And if you don't know about the I-Ching, that is spelled capital I-CHING. And this is an ancient Chinese oracle. And that is what I will be working with today. And there are many people that use the I-Ching oracle. Undoubtedly, there have been millions throughout time. If you're not familiar with it, there are different ways to get answers from the I-Ching, but this is not like oracle cards, okay? And it's not like tarot, although they do have I-Ching cards, but traditionally, that's not how we would do it. The most common way we do it in the West is we cast coins to get the reading. And we have to cast these coins. We cast 3 coins. And I have mine right here. Actually, I have 3 sets of 3 in this little box. I don't know if you can see in there. I'm trying to get it in there. Oh, well. Here's some coins. There's different ones there. Here. Wow, runaway I-Ching. I'll get that later. So we use 3 coins of equal weight and equal denomination, and we cast them 6 times for one reading, and we add up the numbers associated with the totals based on whether they are heads or tails. And if that's too complex for you, don't worry about it. Just know that I use coins to get this, and I cast them 6 times. Now, you can also use yarrow sticks, as in from the plant yarrow, and I do have yarrow sticks from my own plant that I grew. But I did not use the yarrow sticks for this particular reading. That is more complex and takes more time. On the other hand, I didn't just throw out some cards. I did the coins. So wanted to let you know what system I used. And the reason I did it is because this system is undoubtedly one of the best systems in the world for accessing true wisdom, higher perspective. When you work with the I-Ching, if you're spiritually conscious about it, maybe even if you're not, because many different kinds of people work with the I-Ching and have found it to provide valuable answers. You throw your coins and then you look up the lines that it forms, but you add it up and it forms these groupings of lines of 6, and I'll show you one in a minute. Those are called hexagrams because they're 6 lines. And, you look it up in this book, and it's just amazing sometimes the clarity of the answers. And I feel like, as a psychic medium, when I'm working with the I-Ching, I literally feel the ancient Taoist masters come down and speak to me through that oracle. I can feel their energy. So I don't look at this as just another oracle tool. I really don't. I don't look at it like I'm playing with oracle cards. And I don't undertake an I-Ching reading lightly. There was a time when I did I-Ching readings every day to train myself on the system. But these days, now that I am more trained on it, I only do an I-Ching reading if I really, really need to ask about something very important. So that's why I chose this oracle tool for the reading we're about to discuss. And again, this is a reading that I did for my own private self to get the knowledge and then to share it possibly with others. And I won't be sharing all of it in this video. Okay, I mean, I will be sharing what the hexagram is and some things that are said about it, but you know, like I said, when I do these readings, I am in communion with the Ascended Masters of the East. I mean, anybody could be if you wanted to open to it and you had prepared your chakras. But really, when you interface with this I-Ching, if you are spiritually prepared, if you have developed your intuition and your energy systems enough to hold the energy and to open to them, you can receive counsel from the masters themselves, the masters of the East in this case. Lao Tzu, Confucius, the Chinese immortals, and all the countless shamans of the East whose karma is somehow tied up into the system and their wisdom. So this is really like consulting a council of wise masters. And that is exactly what I wanted. And I will say, other systems have other ascended masters associated with them, other higher energies and guides. Like when I work with the runes of my ancestors, then I am tapping into those masters. And I do find that even though they're completely different systems, that I can switch easily back and forth from the runes and the I-Ching. And I do believe they're connected. I mean, just numerically, because there are 64 hexagrams in the I-Ching, so that's 8 times 8. And for those of you who are math people, this is definitely a binary system we're dealing with, but we won't get into all of that today. And in the runes, there are 3 rows of 8, 24. So we see that number 8 is very sacred in the universal energies. And what's interesting too is on this day that I'm filming this video, refilming, remember I tried once and I just thought that's too much. It's too much. It was a very long video. And I was like, I can't do this one. I can't release this one. So I'm going to try to get this one a little shorter, which won't be hard to do because that one was very long. I think it was 45 minutes. This one won't be that long. But anyway, before I was filming today, I had to run a quick errand to go to the store to get a few things. And I got behind a car with the license tag that said Taboo 88. So I thought, oh, this reading, it feels a little taboo to me. You know, I'm not sure if I should share it. And then there's the number 88, you know, that number. I work with 2 systems that are 8 based. So yes, I know that I'm supposed to share it or parts of it. Now, before we jump in to the meat of the prophecy here, what I would like to do is to invite the masters, the Taoist masters I'm speaking of. I'd like to invite them to be with us here now as I offer the interpretation. I want them to channel through as I'm speaking. So let's just take a few deep breaths in together and open our heart chakras. Really just open all of our chakras, but especially our hearts. Let's open to the masters, to those wise, enlightened beings, our elder brothers and sisters who are reaching their hands back to pull us up further in our consciousness. And I do call upon you, wise spiritual masters, ascended ones of the I-Ching, and I ask that you come and assist me in relaying the meaning of this reading for all of us here. And so it is. And I will sound my chime so that they will hear it across the realms and come. It might be a little loud. I'll just do it once though. Very good. So let's dive into the reading now. And I want to make sure again that you understand what the question was or what I was seeking guidance about. I want you to understand that this, even though it was a private reading that I was doing, and yes, I was doing it for myself, for my own interest, okay? But this reading is not only for me, okay? It's not like I was just doing it over my life. I was doing it for myself, but I am doing it regarding the collective energies, especially here in the United States, although I do feel the reading was speaking about the world. And the I-Ching will do that. I will tell you this, the I-Ching doesn't always answer the question you ask. It answers what it thinks you need to know. It tells you that, but it did both this time. So this is a reading for everyone, as to how, what is really going on right now with the, COVID-19, with everything actually, with the collective situation, especially here in the United States, but maybe larger than that as well. I do stay focused, a lot, not always, but here in the United States, just because that's where I live, and I have no way of verifying if I get information about other places. It's easier to sort of verify and fill it out for where I live. At least I can talk to my friends in, other places in the United States and figure it out. But, I do feel it might apply to other parts of the world. So if you're watching from other parts, other countries, it is my strong psychic feeling that this reading is much broader than just the United States. It's certainly much broader than me. Now, you have to apply it to your own life. And I'm going to give you and lay out this information here. And I'm sure that, if you found your way to this video, it is definitely a reading for you. I mean, how did you find your way here? Otherwise, the universe brought you here to receive this message. The masters brought you here. So I do encourage you to listen respectfully and be open. And, because it might just save your life, what you're about to hear, or at least help you in your livelihood and help your sanity and all of that. Now, I can't tell all of you how exactly this applies to your personal situation. So if you want me to help you with that, you're welcome to have a private reading. And I do offer private readings via telephone. That is my preferred method. I also can work via Zoom if you want to do that. And, maybe even Facebook chat. My preferred method is phone. I can do Zoom and, I can do Facebook chat, but those readings aren't as in-depth. It's harder to type it all out. So, and then I do have a few special in-person sessions each month. Those do cost more. You can get info about that on my website at cynthiakillian.com. And I'll try to put that somewhere in here too. But anyway, hopefully you can listen to the information and apply it to your life. Right? So let's dive right in here. And understanding the question, what is going on here? What is going on and how should we proceed? That was part of my question. How should we proceed? What guidance do we need? So here's the hexagram that I got. And I'm going to hold it in close. And I went ahead and printed it out just nice and neat because my handwriting isn't always so neat. And you can see the 6 lines. Don't pay attention to the writing right now. I'll talk some more about that. It's the 6 lines that you can see here, and this is the picture that it forms, and it's number 36, okay? So if you want to do some research on your own, you can look up in your books or go over to, your favorite I-Ching website and type in hexagram number 36. And for those of you who are a little bit more familiar with the system, I want you to know that this was a static hexagram. And what I mean by that is there were no moving lines. What does that mean? Well, what that means is for each of these 64 hexagrams, and I just got one, remember, there's actually 6 different possible variations. 7 really if you count the static, but 6, if these lines add up to certain things, it can change the meaning 6 different additional ways. But this was a static, so there were no moving lines. It's just as it is. Not that we can't learn from moving lines still, but it's just not part of this situation. So what's this hexagram number 36 called? You can see right here, darkening of the light. Actually, it has many names. Some of the ones I've listed here, it's also called wounding of the light, and that is my own preferred translation. But wounding of the light, darkening of the light, Another strong, well-known name for it is censorship. Did you hear me? Censorship. Some call it clouded perception. I've heard it called waning light, disappearing light. Brightness hiding one's light. Ignorance. One of my favorite names for this hexagram is dark night of the soul. So, I mean, even if you don't watch any further, right off the top, you see what the masters are saying, what the I-Ching is saying about our situation. And they were saying this about a week ago. I did this reading on June 22nd. I'm doing this reading on June 30th, which is about 8 days later. So I'm doing the video about the reading, I should say. The reading was done on June 22nd. And wow, when I got that hexagram, I mean, I'm going to tell you some more about it, but you can just tell by the name. Wounding of the light, censorship, darkening of the light. You know, this is what we are to expect going forward. And listen, the I-Ching does not sugarcoat it, as you can tell, right? I mean, there are definitely hexagrams and possible options when you're working with the system that will tell you, go forward, things are going to be great, the obstacles are removed. This is not one of them. And what I want to do here in a moment is I want to read the translation of some of the traditional poems that go with this, and they're very short. And I want you to hear those for yourself. But before I do that, I just want to encapsulate the basic energy of this hexagram, you know, and what the masters show me with it. You know, this is the light going underground. This picture, if you were to know more about these individual lines like I do, because I spent a few years studying it, for example, the strong line here, well, it's considered strong. The unbroken line is considered strong, and that's yang. And the broken lines are considered yin, and those are considered weak or yielding, you know, in a positive. But each one of these different lines in each position means something different. But even more importantly for our discussion, you can divide this up into 2 trigrams. So 2 parts of 3. And this top part here, the 3 broken lines, is the earth trigram. And the bottom part, you see 2 unbroken lines with a broken line in the middle. That's fire. So what this is a picture of is fire sunken into the earth. And fire, you know, when you look in the Chinese esoteric systems, fire is the spiritual element. Fire is the light. You know, fire among the elements, and they use 5 elements, by the way, not just 4, but fire is the element that, you know, you start your fire on the earth and it rises up to the heavens. So the proper placement for this image, really, the fire should be above the earth. The light should be on the earth and then helping us to all reach up. And when we have leaders that are like that, when we have leaders that are on the earth plane and they are reaching up to their own aspirations and being a shining light for everyone, that is better. And when we have a populace in the masses who are living well grounded in earth and they are reaching for their highest potential and they are, you know, developing themselves and developing their intelligence and their wisdom, then we also have a kind of symmetry, a kind of beauty. But we don't have that here. We have the opposite. The light has gone underground. And in this system, we read this from the bottom to the top. So that's how I'm looking at it here. All right, so this is a hexagram where basically, if you are a person of the light, what do I mean by that? Does it mean if you're a New Ager? Not necessarily. I mean, it could mean that. I mean, it's not a religion, you know, or lack thereof. But if you are what I like to call an enlightened being, and by that I don't mean Buddha necessarily. I mean, I do. He is very enlightened, but just if you are a person, an enlightened person, if you are a person of character, if you are a person who is thinking for yourself and has intelligence and who doesn't just believe what you read or hear or see, but you know, you go within and seek the inner truth. You also listen to the information around you, but you process it for yourself. So you're enlightened. And enlightened people are not easily led by others. They're not easily controlled. They're not necessarily going to be out there protesting all the time either, because the enlightened person seeks peace. So if you are a person who seeks and creates peace in your life, if you are a person who has a higher intelligence, and by the way, if you do have higher intelligence, I think one way to really tell that, at least the people I have met who are truly extraordinary and enlightened, much more enlightened than me for sure, those people that I have met or contacted with somehow, they never go around saying they're a whole lot better than other people. So, people who are very smug and looking down on others and, just thinking they're so much better, they are not enlightened people. Those are exactly the kind of people that are in power right now. This is what this is showing. It's the dimness running things. And by the way, with that statement, I'm not, implicating any one political leader, because I don't think this is implicating anyone. So don't go thinking your party is better than the other, because I don't think this is saying that. My feeling from what the masters are showing me is that this is a time of weak leaders. It doesn't matter, who's going to be elected or not elected. This is the time where the leaders do not necessarily have, the best interests of the populace at heart. Or maybe another way of thinking of it is the leaders are doing the best they can, but the consciousness of the masses is in a very dim, dark, fearful place right now. It is not in connection with, the higher light. And this is not changing anytime soon. Now, how do I know that? Because of what I'm channeling through the masters, yes, but also just the image. There's no moving lines. That represents a static energy. That represents this is really just beginning, okay? Now, it will change. It will change eventually. The I-Ching, the book itself, because it's a book as well as a system, it means I-Ching is also called the Book of Changes. So there is built into the system an acknowledgement that everything changes and shifts, But currently and for some time in the future, we are in a time of the darkening of the light, a wounding of the light. This is a time of restriction, okay? And no one will feel the restrictions more than the person who is on this higher path. Do you got me? And I think if you're on the higher path, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it's tough right now for those of us on the path of the light, because this is a wounding of the light. And so what do we do? Well, I'd like to read, the original poems, and this will give you some insight and go over some other stuff here. Actually, let me take a sip of my yarrow tea. I'm drinking the yarrow tea, even though I didn't use the yarrow sticks to read on. This time I used the coins, but still attuning with the energy of the plant yarrow while I do this. It's not the most lovely tea, but if you put a little honey in, it's not too bad. And I'm going to read from here my favorite I-Ching translation, which those of you who work with the system will be familiar with this. This is the Wilhelm Baines translation. And it's called, of course, the I-Ching or Book of Changes. Most of them are called that. This is published by Princeton University Press. Because, the I-Ching book and the poems, this is Chinese, ancient Chinese, so they were not written in English. And actually, if I remember right, this was first translated from, I don't even know if it was Mandarin, or I'd have to look back to see which form of Chinese dialect it was. It was originally translated from, the Chinese dialect into German, then into English. So it's been a long road to get here so that we can be able to read it in our native language. And by the way, Carl Jung wrote the foreword to this translation. Some of you may know who he is, one of the greatest thinkers, truly an enlightened being, truly. So there's two little poems that go with each of these hexagrams, and they are little. The first part is called The Judgment, and the second part is called The Image. I'm going to read these, and then I'll give some more interpretation for you on this, some more guidance and advice for going forward. The Judgment. darkening of the light. In adversity, it furthers one to be persevering. Let me repeat that in case you didn't catch it. Darkening of the light. In adversity, it furthers one to be persevering. And then the image. The light has sunk into the earth. The image of darkening of the light. Thus does the superior man, which means the enlightened being, live with the great mass, as in the great masses. He veils his light, yet still shines. And I'll read it again, just in case you didn't get all that, in case you're taking notes. The image, the light has sunk into the earth, the image of darkening of the light. Thus does the superior man live with the great mass. He veils his light, yet still shines. So there's this concept here with this reading, with this hexagram, and what the masters were telling me for myself, but they're also telling all of you who get this reading that in times ahead, for those of us who are, on a path of higher spiritual consciousness, for those of us who are aware, who have critical thinking, for example, we are going to need to conceal our intelligence, actually. Now, you want to keep it, but you can't outwardly blast it everywhere. That would be very dangerous at this time. And it's interesting too, because it's talking about how, the superior man, by the way, superior man means the enlightened being. And I know it's a little sexist sounding, but you got to keep in mind, back in ancient China, as these manuscripts were getting written, it was primarily men at that time, consulting this. Actually, men in government, actually. It started out as a shamanic system and then got codified later. So, it applies to both genders, though, and it applies to anybody of any social class or, culture or racial distinction. It doesn't matter. What matters is the idea of the superior man is the enlightened person, the spiritually conscious being. So what it's saying here is the spiritually conscious person at this time who is wise will veil their light. They will not shine it too strongly outward, which is why I cannot give all parts of what I received in this video. I cannot shine all of the wisdom out. I can only shine some of it, okay? Because I must veil my light. And maybe, I'm going to be cautious about who I share this information with, right? Or not. Maybe I'm just going to put it on YouTube and hope it finds all the right people. So, but still, it's a good general guidance. And yet, we still shine because it says, he veils his light, yet still shines. What's interesting about this now, I did this reading on June 22nd, and then I tried to do the first video yesterday on June, I guess it would have been 29th, and right after I got done with that, well, it wasn't right after, it was a few hours later, and I didn't know what was going on in the world. I was in here filming, doing my psychic stuff, right? And then I learned that my state that I live in just passed, I guess it's going to be a law. I think so. It's a mandate, whatever that means. So starting in a couple of days, we will all legally, we'll have to wear masks in public places. So I think that's really interesting that on the same day that, I was doing the video about this reading, and where it clearly states that the superior man must veil his or her light, we must veil our light. Isn't a mask like a veil? I think so. So, and by the way, this doesn't mean I'm pro-mask or anti-mask. I'm not going to get into that because my personal feelings about that don't matter for the purposes of relaying this video. But I'm sure that's no coincidence. I'm sure that, it's almost like the I-Ching had predicted that would come, that, and with this, what this is saying, just looking at that example, we have to be compliant outwardly, even if inwardly we are not. Even if, we don't agree with something, this is advising to not cause problems for yourself by, eliciting enmity and, you know, getting in somebody's face about something unnecessarily. So anyway, that's what I'm seeing on that. And we're going to have more of this, okay, because this is a static situation. So we need to know how to proceed. And we do that by still shining inwardly, but we do have to veil our light some so as not to draw attention to ourselves. This is definitely not the time to go on social media and get on a rant and, you know, try to raise other people's awareness, like forcefully. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do that gently. I mean, actually, that's not the same. Doing it, you know, if you're talking with a friend and they're open and you're sharing ideas, you know, that's different. But I know a lot of you out there are feeling like, you know, you're going to speak up, and I'm usually all for that, okay? And actually, I am all for that. I mean, especially now, there's some crazy stuff. I mean, it's just gotten crazy. But the thing is, what this hexagram is telling me is that they won't hear you, okay? If you truly are coming from an enlightened place, if you truly do have wisdom, the chances of somebody who does not have that right now hearing you are like zilch. So anyway, this video is getting long too. I guess it's just a really in-depth subject that I'm going to have to, you know, have a longer video about. But let me read you some more things that I have highlighted here, or just some stuff from my notes, and then I'll wrap up. Okay, and this is, I'm actually reading a couple of things that I underlined here from the Wilhelm Bain's translation again. They're talking about here a man of dark nature is in a position of authority and brings harm to the wise and able man. So again, this hexagram, it is associated with leaders who harm people, not help them. And, you know, now if you aren't familiar with Chinese history, you won't know part of this hexagram. So let me just enlighten you that there's a time in ancient China, there's a situation involving King Wen. And anyway, this person was imprisoned, this royalty, by another ruler. And he was truly the evolved one. The king in prison was truly the enlightened being. But he was imprisoned, and the only way he could stay alive was to pretend to be insane. Now, eventually he did make impact on society and all that, and that's another story. But yes, he had to get through these difficult times by pretending to be less than. So keep that in mind. You know, you want to maintain your inner light within, but you need to appear to be outwardly yielding. You know, you need to appear to go along. And what this means, it's not a good time to, you know, like I know some friends, even, you know, some people that I really respect that are, say, for example, they're really against vaccination and they don't want to do that. And they're signing documents online, or they're thinking about signing documents online that say, I will not take a vaccination. I don't recommend signing those documents, okay? This hexagram does not recommend that for us. You know, you want to at least, whatever your feelings are, and by the way, I'm not coming across as pro or anti-vaccine, I'm just saying that as an example, okay? You know, you do want to at least outwardly appear that you're not opposed to these things, because if you appear outwardly opposed, it will cause you problems and possibly put you in danger. So I wouldn't recommend signing that. I wouldn't recommend putting your name on any list like that at this time. It could put you in great danger, actually. Or at least, you know, maybe just put you in danger of total social harassment and social, you know, disconnect. You know, you could get excommunicated from your circles. And that could have economic implications for you. It could have family implications. It wouldn't be wise to do that. As it says in, you know, some of these notes that I have here, and remember, I'm not sharing everything here, but I'm sharing what I feel you need, what the masters are showing me. You know, you keep your intelligence hidden. That's how you're going to best proceed. You know, you don't have to, where was this one thing I'd written about here? Yeah, I got some good stuff from the I-Ching workbook by R.L. Wing. If you want to check that out too, R.L. Wing, the I-Ching workbook is another good translation. And That author calls this one censorship, which I've heard that before. One thing that he or she says in here, let me just read you this paragraph so you can understand. You are directly confronted by forces that threaten both your convictions and the attainment of your goals. Unfortunately, your position in this situation is not powerful. Remember, this is a reading for everybody, okay? This is talking, actually, it's specifically for those of us who are on that higher spiritual path. It will be necessary to submit to this time of personal censorship and step into the background. You must conceal your feelings. Make it a point to appear externally accepting of a difficult environment. It is both useless and dangerous to expound your convictions, and by doing so, you will only invite further difficulties. Yeah, you got that? And then I think it goes on to say somewhere, oh, maybe it's not here. You can, you don't have to resist outwardly, but you can do nothing to help your adversaries. So, that's why signing your names on the list or even making public declarations of opinions that are unpopular, why do that? Why, when this energy is going on, I would not recommend that, Now, if you are a person who is kind of more in line, you're more in line with, the more popular narrative, and that's okay if that's your path. That might be safer for you. So you'll have to use your judgment. Remember, I can't read for every minute detail of your personal situation. If you want, more personal reading, we have to do that one-on-one. But, you have to, hide maybe what you're really thinking inside, but still hold your integrity and alignment. And speaking up is just not going to be fruitful right now. People are not sympathetic to what you have to say necessarily. If you're challenging, their narrative or their beliefs, especially if it is a very widely held belief, you do not have to. Okay, here's a line here I want to read from the workbook. It would be wise to react as though you were in agreement with your adversaries and yet do nothing to actually help them. So you could do that, right? I mean, especially if it'll help keep you safe and help you to get through this time. If you're reserved, if you're cautious, then you won't pose a threat to anybody, and then, you won't have as many problems during this time. If you're not reserved, if you're not cautious, if you insist on going out there and speaking vehemently against, these dark forces in power, the I-Ching is suggesting that may not end well for you. And this is part of, the system that we're reading here, and the masters we're channeling, they very much do acknowledge the forces of good and evil. And this system acknowledges that there are times when good and, I don't know if you want to say righteousness, or I like to say peace, beauty, the sublime, when these qualities are stronger in society and the world. And then there are other times when, yes, the forces of darkness, I don't mean like the devil, okay? I just mean weak-minded people, those who would control others. These forces are stronger right now, is what the hexagram is saying. And I know it may not appear that to some. And, some might say, well, we're making progress with, police brutality. And maybe there is some progress. I don't know. I don't trust as much just what I read or hear in the outer world. I listen to the spiritual masters, because their truth is eternal. It doesn't change as much as, say, the way news stories do now. So anyway, this is what I'm getting. I think this is enough for now. Once again, this video is longer than I wanted, but I think it's good information for you. This is a time where we do have to learn. It's a spiritual lesson for us all to learn to accept, the darker side of things. To accept it only outwardly, though inwardly we remain true to our past. And you should continue to go about the attainment of your goals. I mean, this hexagram talks about persevering. So don't get so distracted by trying to, change others or speak out to persuade them when you know it's not going to work. Leave that for another time, a better time when the energies are more suitable to that, and work quietly in the background on your own personal spiritual goals. I mean, this is a wonderful time for that. And understand this too, because there are no moving lines here. I mean, this shows fate. This is our karma. We were born to go through this. And whether you like it or not, whether you like some of the situations that are happening, this is as much a part of our fate as anything. And one of the best things you can do is graciously and serenely accept your fate at this time. And do the best you can with it. That's all we can do. So on that note, I'm leaving you all with the blessings of the Masters. And let us thank the Masters together. I thank you, wise ones. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Bright blessings.